For a long time I thought that flanger pedals were kind of a one-trick pony where I'd use them for that jet plane swoosh type sound and that'd be about it. But I'm starting to come around to the idea that actually basic analog flanger pedals like the Boss BF-2 and the MXR M117 are actually some of the most versatile types of modulation effect that you can use. With just a bit of a deeper understanding of the controls, you can get chorus, phaser, rotary speaker, Uni-Vibe, vibrato, even some auto wah type sounds, all from one simple analog pedal. And while I know there are multi-effects pedals that will do all these effects in one box, there's a certain beauty about taking just an old school analog flanger pedal and seeing how creative and resourceful you can be just with that one effect. So before we dive right into all the examples, to get the most out of this, you do need a decent understanding of all the controls on a flanger pedal and what they do, because that is what generally stops people from finding all these settings and being able to fine tune them to exactly what you want. It's not quite as easy as chorus pedals and phaser pedals where they're a bit more intuitive, sometimes don't have as many controls. A flanger pedal takes a bit more skill, I think, so just stay with me for a minute. I won't go deep into the history of the flanger effect here, I'll try and keep it short and sweet, but just know that the flanger effect comes from when in the studio two tape machines will be playing the same music ever so slightly out of sync, and you've got an effect right there already. You've got the effect of delay between the two tape machines, just a very short delay. But that's worth remembering. And what would happen next is that some clever clogs will put their finger on the flange of one of the tape machines, and that causes it to slow down and, more importantly, drop in pitch. And the harder they press with their finger, the deeper the pitch drops. As they release the pressure with their finger, then it speeds back up, and you've got this speeding up of pitch back to, you know, standard speed, more in sync with the other tape machine. So it's that pressing on and off of the flange of one of the tape machines that causes the traditional flanger sound. The manual control is delay time, longer to the left and shorter to the right. This is basically how in or out of sync those two tape machines would be. Depth or width, some pedals call it width, is how wide the sweep is. So that's how hard the finger would be pressed on the flange of one of those tape machines. Rate or speed is how fast the modulation happens. So that's how fast or how often the finger will be pressed on the flange of that tape machine. The resonance, feedback or regeneration, different flanger pedals call it different things, but that control feeds the delayed signal back to the input, which it just intensifies the flanging effect as you turn it up. Okay, let's get the standard flanger swooshing sound out of the way. All controls at about noon, apart from maybe the resonance control, which you can crank up a little bit. Chorus sounds, set the resonance really low so you get away from that really intense flanging sound. And the manual control, which remember is the delay time, set all the way down, so it's a really long delay. We want to move away from the typical flanger sound of fast delays where you get that kind of comb filter type sound. We want to move away from that and more towards the longer delays that chorus pedals have, where it sounds more like two signals just laid over the top of each other. The depth should be set fairly low. Flangers can get really wide and kind of wild. We want more of that subtle, smooth sweep of a chorus pedal, so set the depth fairly low for this. The rate control can be set to taste, but on this BF-2 there's loads of range in the lower settings. All the kind of what I call medium sort of speed settings are all in that sort of top end range of the control on this one. speaker type sound, you can use a lot of the same settings that we used for the chorus sounds, but just increase the depth a little bit so you're getting that wider sweep, and that tends to get you probably more of the sound of a chorus pedal emulating the sound of a rotary speaker. So just to be clear, we're using a flanger pedal to emulate a chorus pedal emulating a rotary speaker, so just kind of manage your expectations. But it's quite a fun setting, quite nice sort of organ type sounds, as well as like John Scofield type stuff, things like that. Now if you raise the manual control to shorten the delay, you start to get more of a phasing type sound that's kind of similar to a Uni-Vibe. I'll try and use it here in a similar way to kind of Hendrix and Robin Trowerwood, those sort of classic rock Uni-Vibe users, where I've got the OD3 set to a mild overdrive that's trying to emulate a kind of Marshall Plexi type sound. I've got fuzz pedal going into it, and in between them I've got the BF-2 doing what I think is a pretty acceptable Uni-Vibe impression. Crank both the depth and rate controls, you can get a pretty good vibrato pedal type sound, and I like using this sort of setting for a momentary effect, just to highlight certain notes. You can take the rate and depth down a little bit if you want, but the sound of the original signal starts to blend in a bit more with the modulated signal, so it starts to sound a bit more like a chorus again. On those settings, I think. On the more extreme settings, the original signal is less prominent, so to me it sounds more like a vibrato pedal should. If you raise the manual control so there's only a really short delay, you get a sound similar to a phaser. And what's happening is on the longer delay settings, it's more like two signals laid over each other. On the shorter delay settings, you're getting that more shimmery sound of phase cancellation that has reduced bass. I'll just sweep through the manual control and see if you can hear that reduction in bass and that increase in shimmery effect, that sort of thinning of the sound. as I go from the longer delay sound to the shorter delay setting. I'll do some chord playing with a slow phaser type sound, and then I'll raise the rate a little for a faster phaser type sound that I quite like for kind of funk lead riffs and stuff like that. I might be pushing my luck with this one, but if you like that funky phaser sound but want it to sound more like a wah pedal, you can move away from the phasing type sound and get more of an auto wah type sound by backing off the manual and depth controls and raising the resonance a little bit. And what you're after is trying to get a fluctuation in tone rather than pitch, or at least the effect of a fluctuation in tone. So tweak the settings a little bit to find what works best for you. The more you raise the resonance control, the more it's going to blend with a more traditional flanger type sound. Of course, it wouldn't be right not to include an example with the flanger on its more extreme settings for some of that weird 80s sci-fi synthy madness. For this, just crank all the controls apart from maybe the rate control, just set that to taste. I hope that's helped you understand flanger pedals a little bit better. Remember that all these settings aren't just applicable to the BF-2. You can use them with any flanger pedal that just has these four main controls. Hope you found this useful. If you did, think about liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and thanks for watching.